Hey everyone, and welcome back. You sent us some really interesting stuff on the Baha'i faith, so we're going to take a deep dive into it with you today.
Awesome.
And get this, it's all about peace and unity,
Okay.
but not in like some vague feel-good way.
Right.
We're talking like real-world solutions, global vision, even a historical twist involving kings and emperors.
Wow.
It's a good one.
Yeah. What's fascinating to me is this idea of a message that is intended not just for a specific group or a specific religion, but for everyone. It's like offering a new way to think about humanity as a whole.
I'm hooked already. So let's start with the basics. What's the core message here?
Well, at its heart, the Baha'i faith emphasizes the oneness of humanity.
Oh.
Baha'u'lláh, the founder, taught that we're all citizens of one planet. We are all interconnected and interdependent, regardless of our backgrounds, our beliefs. He famously said the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens.
That's a powerful image, seeing the entire world as one community.
Yeah.
But how does that translate into addressing the real problems we face?
Right.
You know, conflict, injustice, inequality. I mean, it feels like everything's a bit of a mess right now.
And that's exactly what Baha'u'lláh was addressing over a century ago. He saw these problems and he offered a way forward based on justice, peace, and eliminating the barriers that divide us.
Okay.
He envisioned a world where differences are celebrated, not used as a basis for conflict or oppression.
So it's not just about like feeling good. It's about actually tackling the root causes of these problems.
Yeah.
Like how do we actually move from us versus them to this idea of like global unity?
It starts with recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being.
Okay.
Baha'u'lláh emphasized the equality of all people in the eyes of God, regardless of race, religion, nationality, any other factor. He called for the elimination of all forms of prejudice, urging people to see beyond these superficial differences and embrace our shared humanity.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects to a global vision, but what about those kings and emperors you mentioned? That's a historical twist I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Okay.
Baha'u'lláh didn't just preach these principles to the masses. He took them straight to the most powerful rulers of his time.
Wow.
Think about it. The Sultan of Turkey, the Shah of Persia, Queen Victoria of England, the Emperor of Russia. He sent them these incredibly bold letters called tablets,
Okay.
outlining his vision for a better world.
Wait, so he's like directly challenging the most powerful people in the world.
He was.
What was their reaction?
Well, the responses varied,
Okay.
but one example that stands out is his tablet to Queen Victoria.
Okay.
He challenged her notions of colonialism, urging her to consider the welfare of all her subjects, not just those within her empire. He emphasized the importance of justice and called for a more equitable distribution of resources, a concept that resonates even more strongly today.
That's a pretty radical concept for the 19th century. Was anyone actually listening to him?
While it's hard to measure the direct impact, his writings sparked a movement that continues to grow to this day. The Baha'i faith now has millions of followers worldwide, all working towards this vision of unity, justice, and peace. So it's not just a philosophy, it's a lived experience, a community working to bring these principles to life.
Yeah.
But how does someone actually put these teachings into practice? Is it about like specific rituals or joining a particular group?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, think of it as a framework for living a more purposeful and meaningful life. One that's based on service to others, promoting unity, and actively working towards a more just and peaceful world.
Okay, I'm ready for part 2. This is already giving me a lot to think about.
Great. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Baha'i faith. Last time we talked about that core message of unity and Baha'u'llah's bold move of addressing world leaders directly. But as you asked, how does this actually play out in everyday life?
Right, it's all very inspiring.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the practical side. What does it actually look like to live these principles?
Yeah.
Is it about specific rituals or joining a particular group?
It's definitely not about joining a club or following a rigid set of rules. Instead, the Baha'i faith offers a framework for living a more purposeful life.
Okay.
It's about internalizing these principles of unity, justice, and peace, and then letting them guide your actions and your interactions with others.
Okay, so less about dogma, more about a way of life.
Exactly. Think of it as a continuous process of learning and applying these teachings in your daily life.
So where do we even begin? Give us some concrete examples. How do these like grand ideas translate into real-world actions?
Well, let's take the principle of unity.
Okay.
Bahá'u'lláh emphasized the oneness of humanity, that we're all interconnected regardless of our backgrounds. So how can we manifest that in our daily lives?
I'm all ears.
It could be as simple as treating everyone you encounter with respect and kindness, even those who hold different views than you. It could mean reaching out to people from different cultures and learning about their traditions, expanding your circle of understanding.
So it's about actively combating prejudice and discrimination in all its forms, challenging those like ingrained biases we all carry.
Precisely. And it's not just about individual actions. Baha'u'lláh also called for systemic changes to create a more just and equitable world.
Okay.
For example, advocating for gender equality, ensuring access to quality education for all, working to eliminate poverty. These are all ways to work towards a more unified society.
That makes sense. You can't have true unity when entire groups of people are marginalized or oppressed.
Yeah.
It has to be reflected in the structures of society as well.
Now, building upon this foundation of unity, Baha'u'llah's vision extended to a world where peace is not just the absence of war, but a state of active harmony.
Okay, let's talk about peace. We all know peace is more than just the absence of war, but putting it into practice,
Right.
especially in today's world where conflict seems to be everywhere, that feels like a tall order.
It is a challenge, but not an impossible one. Baha'u'lláh emphasized the importance of consultation and collaboration. Instead of resorting to conflict, we should strive to understand different perspectives and find solutions that benefit everyone.
So it's about communication, empathy, and compromise. Skills that are definitely lacking in many parts of the world today.
Absolutely. These are the building blocks of a peaceful society. And this ties into another key aspect of Baha'i teachings, the elimination of prejudice. This goes beyond simply tolerating differences. It's about actively embracing and celebrating the diversity of human experience.
Instead of seeing our differences as something that divides us, we can see them as a source of strength and richness.
Ah,
I love that. It's like that quote, our differences are our strength. Or was it, diversity is the spice of life?
either one works. It's about shifting our perspective. Think about a garden with only one type of flower. It might be pretty, but it wouldn't be nearly as vibrant or interesting as a garden filled with a multitude of colors, shapes, and scents.
Now that's a visual I can get behind.
Yeah.
So in essence, we need to cultivate a society where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their unique talents.
Exactly. And this leads us to another core principle, justice. For Baha'u'lláh, justice wasn't just about punishing wrongdoers. It was about creating a society where everyone has equal opportunities to thrive.
So it's about fairness, equity, and ensuring that everyone has access to the resources they need to live a fulfilling life.
Yes. And this includes things like fair wages, access to health care, and a legal system that treats everyone equally regardless of their background. It's about leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone has the chance to reach their full potential.
This is all starting to connect in a powerful way. It sounds like a lot of this comes down to shifting our mindset, moving away from self-interest and embracing the well-being of the whole man. Would you say that's accurate?
You hit the nail on the head. Baha'u'lláh taught that we need to see ourselves as part of something larger than ourselves, that our individual happiness is inextricably linked to the happiness of others.
It's like that old saying, no one is an island. We're all in this together.
And speaking of being in it together, let's not forget about the role of service in Baha'i teachings. It's not just about personal piety. It's about actively working to make the world a better place.
So it's about getting out there, rolling up our sleeves, and contributing to the betterment of our communities and society as a whole.
Absolutely. Whether it's volunteering your time, donating to worthy causes, or simply being a good neighbor, there are countless ways to engage in acts of service.
You know, it's one thing to talk about unity, peace, and justice, but it's another thing entirely to actually live those principles out in our daily lives. It seems like the Baha'i faith really emphasizes that connection between belief and action.
Precisely, Baha'u'lláh emphasized that true faith is manifested through deeds, not just words.
This is all incredibly insightful, but I have to ask, are there any specific practices or rituals in the Baha'i faith that help people connect with these teachings on a deeper level? I'm always fascinated by how different faiths approach spirituality.
That's a great question, and the answer is yes. While the Baha'i faith doesn't have elaborate rituals or ceremonies, there are certain practices that help foster spiritual growth and connection.
Tell me more.
One of the foundational practices is daily prayer and meditation. This isn't about rote repetition. It's about taking time each day to connect with the divine, reflect on spiritual teachings, and seek guidance.
It's like carving out that quiet time to nourish your soul. amidst the busyness of everyday life.
Exactly. And there's a strong emphasis on studying sacred scriptures, both the writings of Bahá'u'lláh and the sacred texts of other religions. This isn't about dogma, but rather seeking wisdom and inspiration from a variety of sources.
So it's about expanding your understanding of spirituality and recognizing the interconnectedness of different faith traditions.
Precisely. Another important practice is fasting. Once a year, Baha'is observe a 19-day fast from sunrise to sunset. It's a time for spiritual reflection, detachment from material desires, and focusing on prayer and service.
It sounds like a powerful way to cleanse the body and spirit and recenter yourself on what truly matters.
There's also a strong emphasis on community involvement. Baha'is gather regularly for devotional meetings, study circles, and to plan community service projects. It's about fostering a sense of belonging and collective purpose.
It's like that old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
We can achieve so much more when we work together towards a common goal.
Exactly. And finally, there's a concept called 19-Day Feast, which is a monthly gathering that combines spiritual devotion consultation on community affairs and fellowship. It's a time for reflection, sharing, and strengthening community bonds.
It sounds like a beautiful blend of spirituality, community building, and working for the common good.
A truly holistic approach.
It's a microcosm of the kind of world that Baha'u'lláh envisioned, a world where spirituality isn't confined to private practice, but spills over into action, service, and collective progress.
This has been incredibly illuminating. I'm starting to see how these principles could really make a difference both on a personal and a global level. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It's not just about exploring a belief system. It's about uncovering a roadmap for a better future.
So what's next on our journey? We've explored the what of Baha'u'llah's message and the HW of putting it into practice.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll tackle the WHY. Why does this matter now in the 21st century? What makes this message so relevant to the challenges we face today? Stay tuned, because that's where things get really interesting.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring some really thought-provoking ideas about the Baha'i faith, like its core message of unity.
Right.
And how these principles can actually be put into practice in our lives.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
From the oneness of humanity and eliminating prejudice to the importance of service and building a more just world.
Right.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the question that keeps coming back to me is, why does all of this matter now?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
The world feels pretty overwhelming these days. Climate change, political division, economic inequality.
That's a lot.
It's a lot to process. So how does a message rooted in the 19th century speak to the problems of the 21st?
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me. How does this 19th century message actually apply to the problems of the 21st century?
Well, let's start with the principle of unity. We live in an increasingly interconnected world, right? What happens in one part of the world impacts everyone else. We can't solve global problems with a fragmented us versus them mentality.
It's like we're all in this giant spaceship hurtling through space together.
Right.
We need to work together if we want to survive and thrive.
Exactly. And that's where Baha'u'llah's emphasis on the oneness of humanity is so crucial. It provides the ethical and spiritual foundation for genuine global cooperation. It's about recognizing our shared destiny and acting accordingly.
So it's not just about signing treaties and agreements.
Yeah.
It's about a fundamental shift in how we see ourselves and our relationship to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Now let's look at the issue of justice. The gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen, leading to all sorts of social unrest and instability. Baha'u'llah's call for economic justice, ensuring everyone has access to basic necessities and opportunities, is more urgent than ever.
It's about creating a world where everyone has a chance to flourish, not just a privileged few.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the issue of prejudice, which unfortunately never seems to go away.
Right.
We're seeing so much intolerance and discrimination based on race, religion, nationality, other factors.
It's true.
Baha'u'llah's call for the elimination of all forms of prejudice is a powerful antidote to this toxic trend.
It's about recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, regardless of their background or beliefs. We've talked about this throughout the episode, but it seems especially relevant to so many of the problems we're facing today.
And we can't forget about climate change.
Oh,
It's arguably the biggest challenge facing humanity right now.
for sure.
Baha'u'lláh emphasized the interconnectedness of all things, including humanity and nature. We need to move away from this purely exploitative relationship with the planet and towards a more harmonious and sustainable way of living.
It's about understanding that we're not just stewards of the earth. We're a part of it. If we destroy the planet, we destroy ourselves.
Now, some people might hear all this and say it's too idealistic, too utopian, but I'd argue that it's precisely this kind of bold vision we need right now. We need to aim high to believe that a better world is possible.
It's like that quote from Nelson Mandela, "It always seems impossible until it's done."
Exactly. We can't afford to give in to cynicism or despair. We need hope, we need inspiration, and we need a roadmap for action. And that's exactly what Baha'u'llah's message offers.
So it's not just about lofty ideals, it's a practical pathway to creating a better future. It's about actually doing something, taking action.
And that's what makes this deep dive so compelling. It's a call to action for all of us. We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix the world. We each have a part to play in creating the future we want to see.
So what does this all mean for our listeners? What can they do with this message? Where do they even begin?
Well, it's an invitation to explore these teachings further. Read the writings of Baha'u'lláh, connect with Baha'i communities, ask questions, and engage in dialogue. Don't be afraid to dive in and learn more.
It's about opening your mind to new perspectives, expanding your understanding of spirituality, and seeing the world through a different lens.
And then it's about putting these principles into action in your own life, however that looks for you. Start with small steps. Treat others with kindness and respect. Stand up against injustice. Work to make your community a better place.
It's about being the change. One thought, one word, one action at a time. And who knows, maybe those ripples of change will spread further than you ever imagined.
That's the beauty of this message. It empowers individuals to make a difference, no matter how small it may seem. And collectively, those small acts of goodness can create a powerful force for transformation.
Wow, this has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. From individual responsibility to a global vision. It's clear that this message has incredible depth and relevance to the challenges we face today. It's given me a lot to think about.
What I find fascinating is how this message, rooted in the 19th century, feels so incredibly relevant to the 21st. It's a call to action for a world facing similar challenges, a reminder that we have the power to create a better future.
We've explored the what, the how, and the why of this message, but the biggest question is, what will you do with it? Food for thought, right? Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.